Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast Good Body, Good Brain. We have a fantastic guest today from down under. She's here all the way from Australia, and I am going to introduce her. She has many titles, many titles, from going back to being a life coach to now having her own publishing company, and she's going to tell us how that sort of came to be and how she helps women on their journey of learning their own sense of self and their own self power. So here she is, Krystal Hille. Or do you say Hilly?
Thanks for having me.
Okay, beautiful. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I know you're like early in the morning, so good morning.
Yes, good afternoon to you. Good morning from me. Winter and summer, we're all on polar opposites, and that's what's beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm. I just turned the AC down. You just turned the heat down.
That's right. Yeah, we've got it all. It's all part of the oneness.
Mm-hmm. It's the yin and yang. It's everything kind of flowing all together, how it goes back and forth. And that's one of the wonderful things about nature. I love watching the seasons. So you used to be a life coach and still are in many aspects. And having a book, first of all, touches certain parts of yourself as you're putting it together, depending on whether it's autobiographical or whether you're doing a nonfiction sort of how-to book. How do you navigate that with women? What do you ask them when they first come to visit with you?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. I like how you're sharing that I'm still kind of life coaching in many respects, because as a life coach, you ask questions and you seek to understand the patterns of the story that is, so that we can create the story that wants to become. And so with the publishing, often the women come to me having so many ideas, like they have at least 5 books that they could write. And then it's about asking the questions about, okay, which one makes most sense, sort of from the logical perspective for their business, to create that calling card, to give them the expertise. And then also, what lights them up the most? What does their soul want to express? What are they passionate about? Because there's no point writing a book that you think you should write in order to be professionally perceived as an authority in your field, because that will come across. I know I actually started a book where I think, oh, I should write this. And then I got stopped. I was like, oh, there's something missing. There's a puzzle piece missing that I haven't quite found yet. And that was that uniqueness. And we spoke about it briefly before we got on air. What is it that makes us unique? Because there are so many life coaches out there. There are so many publishers out there. There's so many business coaches out there. So it's really what I help my clients, the publishing clients, the aspiring authors, what I help them is to really identify their uniqueness. And we start with a powerful exercise all the time, which is called From Voids to Values. And I'm borrowing this concept from Dr. John Demartini, who says that our voids create our values. That which we perceive as absent in our life is that which we strive for. And, you can think about your own life. Why do you do what you do? What is the driving force behind it that comes out of your story, that comes out of your life experience? And so I help them understand that. And from that bedrock, from that foundation of what that is, like for me, it's from disempowerment to empowerment. And so that has become my journey throughout my life, and reclaiming my power, reclaiming trust in myself and trust in the world based on something that happened. And so I to help my clients find that for them. And from that unique perspective, we can then write the book, and that helps the reader to really understand them. When they understand themselves and understand that connection and can write about it, it just makes so much sense. Oh, now I know why you do what you do, and that's what I want the reader to feel when they read their books.
And the flow, it sort of is the difference between having to and shooting yourself like, oh, I should do this, to being pulled by that inspirational spring of wealth of information that lives in here, and it just pulls us right into where we need to go.
Yeah.
So tell
And
me a little bit about how you came up with the term PurposePreneurs.
So the purpose, I love working with women and some men who feel they are living out their purpose. This is that value. They're living from that sense of value that they are striving for themselves, and they feel, okay, this is something that the world needs. I need to be more in my power, and I see that in the world. I see that the world, we need to come more into our power. And so there's many people, it might be connection, it might be love, it might be, those come up right now: connection, love, overcoming grief. This is the purpose of somebody. And so if people have a purpose, if entrepreneurs have a purpose that they're striving for in their business, that's who I want to surround myself with, and that's who I want to work with, because that's what's helping us to elevate the consciousness on the planet at this time.
Yes, the big why. Why? Why do you want to have a business just to make money? Why? What are you going to do with it? What's your impact? What's your legacy? How is it going to help your family, your children? How is it going to affect somebody who's never met you, who lives halfway across the world?
Yes. And it does. I get messages from, I work with people from all over the world, and I had a French client, and she messaged me and she said, "Oh my God, reading Beyond Certainty, the book it's actually behind me here, the blue one, helped me answer a question that I had in my life at this moment." So we never know how we're going to impact someone who's reading the book, picking it up randomly, happening to read a chapter that they need to read. And that's the magic. And that's what I love. It's like we're sprinkling these sparks of hope and inspiration into the world.
And the wonderful thing about books, whether it's digital or not, is it lives on. It's there. It stays on. It's sort of like YouTube is forever.
Unless they take your stuff down, of course, but yes.
Yes, they can, but they better not.
Yes.
What do you think was the, people get huge ahas as you're taking them through their process. It's not like, oh, I never thought of that before. It's like, oh my God, it was sitting right there in front of me and I didn't see it.
Yes, they do. It's really beautiful to see that, especially when we're coming in with these questions of what is that, what is your hero's journey, through all the stages, what is the theme that you're following through in your life? I've had people who, they thought they had a story intellectually because they came into the book and they knew they had to write. But then when they started writing and we crafted the chapter, this lady was saying, "Oh my God, I have a story. I have a story." Like it was here. It was like an intellectual concept, but in the process of writing, she really claimed her story. Well, firstly, she realized that she had one, that her life was a story, and there was some lessons in her life journey that were worth sharing and that could actually inspire someone. And then secondly, she, through that realization and through bringing what was in her, maybe half unconscious, bringing that onto the page, and that discipline of writing and giving it shape, giving it a shape that a reader can take, the confidence that came from that was phenomenal. So she is now showing up in the world in a completely different way. She's claiming her story. She's embodying her story more, and therefore the confidence creates magnetism that attracts more clients to her. And so I love that the personal development aspect of writing a book, because it creates, this personal transformation actually creates professional expansion. They're interlinked. When we're entrepreneurs, the personal interlinked, goes hand in hand with the professional results.
Yes, and especially when you do like a speaking journey, like you're speaking live to people and you tell them a particular story, and they get like goosebumps or cold chills. Or when I lived in Hawaii, we called it chicken skin. We get chicken skin, but and it's like very very visual when you think about how chickens look. But anyway, we would get that, and that like it was sort of like, ooh, that's juicy. We love that.
Yes. And the other thing that sometimes happens, I love working with women who are in business for 1 to 3 years and maybe are not even that clear on their message, especially in the multi-author books where they're writing one chapter. The clarity that they get, because they come with so many themes. I could write about this, I could write about this, I could write about connection, I could write about authenticity, I could write about, and they come up with all these things. And I was like, okay, hang on here. There's no through line. We're going from this, we're jumping all over the place. And then it's my job to figure out, having spoken to them and tuning into them, what is their core message based on their void to value statement as well. And how it's like these branches of these other themes, branches of the tree. How can we make more sense of them and bring them into this unified theme? And so when they get that feedback, and I'm sometimes like, oh, should I really say this? I'm just giving them, I'm being quite direct. I have to be direct. And
yes.
But every time, it's tough love. It's like, your chapter's all over the place. It's too many themes. Let's just hone it down. And when I do that, they have light bulb moments like, oh my God, that's it. That's my theme. And then everything simplifies. And again, the simplicity brings clarity. And again, they show up in a new way. So that's one client I love working with.
I think of it as a tree. So I work with a lot of functional medicine people, and we look at the roots first. What's the roots that's connecting us to our core, our origin? And then the trunk comes up, which is our alignment with that core. And then we can expand out to any branches we want to, but it's all fed by the root and the trunk as we go out into the world. So that's how I conceptualize it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw. I saw that tree. So thank you for sharing that.
And tell me a little bit about, were you a writer as a kid? Did you love to write stories when you were growing up? And
yeah, I was actually. I grew up without a TV, which even in the
Me
70s was quite a crazy thing. Yeah, my parents were, I'm second generation Steiner, or we call it Waldorf school in the States, Steiner school here in Australia. So, and they're very strong on allowing the imagination of the child to develop and not be fed by external images. So my parents were quite strict about that. And there was no TV in the house until I was 14 years old or something. And so, yes, I was an avid reader. I read and read and read. And I also did write stories. I still have one when I was 9 years old, and I wrote about the seasons and the trees and the birds. It was like it's a really cute story. And excuse me, I then English literature, or in my case German, because that's my country of origin. It was my favorite subject at school. I loved exploring different worlds through literature and expanding my horizon. And I loved understanding why people do what they do. And this has always been a fascination of mine. Like, why do humans do what they do, and what makes them tick? And to the point that I thought I didn't think, I knew I was here to help people. And I thought at the time the way to do that was through psychology, because that's the only thing I knew. Turns out thankfully I did my research and had a couple of people who studied it and realized that wasn't mine. I was too creative to box people in. I was not mathematical. I was more of a free spirit and a creator. I was like, no, maybe not. That's maybe not my way. And so then I continued on the literature path and studied English literature and theatre studies, and moved to the UK and did it over there, which was a crazy thing to study English literature as a foreign language at a university level. But I did it, and I did really well as well. And yeah, so I was the editor of my school magazine as well. So there is definitely that background of a love for reading and writing and sharing stories, because they have such power. in the ancient times, we sat around the campfire. Knowledge was passed on through stories.
Mm-hmm.
And stories really, because they speak so much to the heart and they drop us into our feeling body, our emotions, our connection, because we identify and recognize. And, with the mind compares and contrasts. So we always think, oh, yeah, me too. Oh, I did this. Oh, that's why, we get realizations when somebody has a similar experience and they have processed that experience and they can share their hindsight and their insight and their wisdom that they gain from that. It helps somebody else make sense of their own experiences. And that's how we broaden consciousness.
Yes, oral traditions are so prevalent, especially I live in a community, even though I'm Texas, that's German, Czechoslovakian, some that Polanders they call themselves, and a lot of Hispanic people, and it's really, really well integrated. And the German people still speak their native language at home. The elders do. They never taught the kids because they didn't want them to know what they were saying. But the kids kind of caught on a little bit. So it's a wonderful legacy of talking about how they became like third and fourth generation in here. And their ancestors came with a giant trunk of their clothes and a piece of paper from the Mexican government saying, you have 300 acres, go do something with it and keep the Indians off of it. That was their mission. We want to push the Apaches back because they're running down into Mexico. Hundreds and hundreds were on that ship, and they met and they married. Sometimes they didn't speak their same language. Like a lot of Czechoslovakian women married German men, and it made a wonderful, wonderful, solid, marriage. They each brought some things to the marriage that were just so unique and perfect. And I think when we share these stories about all these things that have happened in the past, and we're connected to who we are now, it just gives us such a richness. We're not just a cardboard cutout. We're fully 3D to other people. And that's the wonderful thing of story. And we've had a resurgence of story. Using stories to sell things now, using stories to connect with your team, with your people who want to get to know you. And so people are teaching how to tell stories right now, which I think is so funny, but lovely in a way that we've forgotten and now we remember it again.
It's so true. It's so true. And stories really, they create that know, like, and trust factor, if we want to put it into, business terms. When we understand who somebody is and what drives their motivation, suddenly we can trust them. Yeah.
Yes, I like that quote. I write to discover what I know.
Yes. I posted that on my Facebook the other day, or LinkedIn as well the other day. It's so true, isn't it? I write to discover what I know. And that's what I was sharing about one of my clients who suddenly realized she had a story. It's like, we create realizations. Other clients sometimes realize that there's still shame. Oh, I didn't realize that thing with my dad that happened is still actually impacting me. And then they bring it to the surface, and then it can be healed and released.
Especially with relationships, their current relationships with their significant other or males. It's if that unhealed piece just pops out. But sometimes you don't realize that's where it's coming from.
Or you do, and you thought you healed it, and then you write and you still get emotional about it, and then there's another layer, and then we can look at it.
Yes. And so that's the beauty of being able to see someone, like even if it's on Zoom or whatever, and we start talking about a thing about their past that they bring up or something, and then they start to get a little teary-eyed and weepy, and the emotion just kind of bubbles up. And when that happens, we know that's the spotlight. That's the spotlight that we have to shine on that particular aspect. So the next time or the next time or the next time when they speak about it, they can do it from a place of like their own neutrality or power, and it doesn't have the same sort of impact that it did when they kept bringing it up. It's sort of like when we speak to a live audience and we talk about something that's happened to us that had been untoward or something didn't work out well, and we talk about where we're on the top and then we fell, like the hero's journey, and then we came back. When we come back, we have to be in our power to come back. We don't want to leave the audience down there in the valleys, emotional and feeling awful. We want to come with us to our journey so it feels helpful and empowering to them.
That's exactly right. And it's really an interesting topic that often comes up, of how deep to go into the pain and how much
Mm-hmm.
detail to share, because of what it may evoke in the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people may still be triggered by if there's been domestic violence or sexual
Mm-hmm.
abuse, and these themes, like how deep do we go into it? And I remember Les Brown saying that you touch on it, but you leave a lot of it to the reader's
Mm-hmm.
imagination, the audience's imagination.
Mm-hmm.
You connect with it emotionally enough
Mm-hmm.
to create, to be in it without being taken over by it, right? This is that
Yes, yes.
we don't just talk about it from our logic. We actually
Mm-hmm.
we relive it to a degree, but from that healed place. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we can then take the reader back, or the audience back, up and out into our experience and the triumph that came from that, from the depth of that, that it's called, what is it called? The inner cave, where there's the deepest transformation, the rock
Mm-hmm.
bottom, the dark night of
Mm-hmm.
the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Come out of that, fight with resilience, with wisdom, with courage.
Mm-hmm. And I love the way he talks about his childhood and his brother and all the things that happened to him growing up, and how he discovered, actually, someone said to him, "You should be speaking," and he went, "Oh, no, I know nobody would want to listen to me. Who would want to listen to me?" And here he
Yes,
is.
that's right.
He's an icon.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the reason why I feel he's an icon is because he has that emotional connection. He always has the spark in his eye. He always
Mm-hmm.
taps into
Mm-hmm.
his passion. He
Mm-hmm.
always it's the passion his that he created out of the
Mm-hmm.
hardship that he's gone through. So that's what he taps into. And yes, he talks about a little bit about where he comes from, but he
Mm-hmm.
does it from the hindsight with the humor. And I think that's really powerful. And for a writer, like if I was to give a writing tip,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that's really important is to tap into the emotions when you write. If you're writing just from your head, you might as well write a scientific paper talking about maths.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, when we're writing about our story, it's important to tap into the emotions. And I actually created four author archetypes, one being the watery mystic, which is all about the emotions. And this watery mystic, if that is you, you would be writing and you would be crying as you're writing, and you would go off like a river, going off tangent and flowing and meandering around.
Yes, I would see that as a Piscean
Yes,
journey. Yes.
that's right. You might flood the river might get out of the riverbed and flood the surroundings, because there's just so much that comes up. And it's and these writings are usually amazing and powerful, but the river needs to be contained by the earth. It needs to be a riverbed, so we need to bring the earth, the empress, in. And for me, the empress is that power that grounds everything. When I start working with a writer, that's the first one we embody and tap into, so that we can say, okay, what is the through line? What's the arc? What's the transformation I'm taking my reader on? What's that journey and what's the little takeaways along the way, the little mini transformations? And then once we know that, once we've got the arc, like also architecturally, it's like the architect drawing the things before they go on the site and build random walls. They always make a drawing first. We never build random walls to start writing, because it gets very overwhelming if you start like that. And so then once we've got that outline, we then activate the airy wizard. The airy wizard is, the air element. It's like a Gemini, who if we want to talk astrology. They have so many ideas, and that can be overwhelming at times. And if we're just staying there, but now it's like, okay, we've got the concept, we've got our idea, and now it's like everything is a yes and, yes and, yes and. Oh, I could share this story. Maybe this goes here. Yes and, or this exercise. And so it's a brainstorming phase, but because we have the structure, we can slot it in place. Right.
Yes, I see them as like the little birds, like the Pitta, Ayurvedic, the birds. They're on the air and they're flying.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I have an author-archetype activations where I guide people through meditations to activate each archetype. And I use the butterfly in that one. Yeah, it's very similar. It's really beautiful. Yeah. And they have a bigger perspective as well, right? When you're flying, you can see a bigger picture because you have an elevated viewpoint.
Yes, I used to love this.
Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm too stuck in this thing. It's like, no, you can, see more. Yeah.
Yes, when I was growing up, I used to have these dreams about flying, and even when I went to grad school, I worked with Stanley Krippner. He's still living. He's almost 90. He is probably the leading authority living on dream work. Not just from a development standpoint, from just like being a human being. If you don't dream or you don't remember your dreams, you're missing a piece of yourself, because our dreams tell us so many things. I was we had a dream table every morning when we were at like a retreat for the graduate students, and we would share our dreams, and then we'd do interpretations for each other. And I had a dream where I was trying to get to the airport, and I was struggling, and I was in this wonderful new bright red car, which I didn't own then. And then all of a sudden there was a button in the car that I pressed, and it actually sort of leaped up over the other cars and started flying down the highway in the air, and I got to the airport on time. And so we had just the biggest amount of fun taking that whole dream apart, because his theory was every part of the dream is you. Whether you're the tiger or the car or the destination, it's all you. And when you look at that from the standpoint, it's all you, you can really embody all of that within whatever you're going to bring to the world.
I like that. Yes. Yes.
So suppose somebody... Oh, go ahead. The last one is...
To finish the 4 archetypes, the last one is the fire. And that's a, very quick one. It's like, if we look at Les Brown, he embodies it. It's the charisma. It's the spark. It's the fiery, let's bring this to life. Let's share a good story,
Yeah, that's Lisa Nichols.
Yes. She's amazing at that as well.
Yes. She has codified her craft, which is incredibly amazing. She's figured out what she does and has actually created it so she can teach other people how to do it. That to me is like the embodiment of mastery, when you can get to that level.
Absolutely, because you can have an unconscious competence, but how do you do what you do is it? Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Now, somebody maybe is watching this and they're thinking to themselves, oh, heck, I've got a book. I've got several books in me. And what do I do? How can I get these books to come out? Like, how would they go about working with you?
So I think the best way is to reach out to me on the links below, or, I've got my website down there as well, just to have a conversation. I have a solo book incubator, which is a 4-month group program where I help people to plan, craft, and write their book. I also do that one-on-one if somebody really wants my undivided attention in a one-on-one setting. And I do have an online course. So depending on where they're at and their resources and needs, there's different ways of doing that. And then, of course, we have the publishing packages as well, so they can get it published. And we look at, I work intuitively and strategically. So we'll look at what's the end goal? How are you getting getting your investment? What's your return on investment with this? And often the book, as you said earlier, it's like a calling card. So we can then create courses and be invited to bigger stages and have that authority. So yes, I love that whole process. And I think it's just a reach out, have a conversation and see if there's alignment.
Yes. And I think the one-to-one with you would be like, I would call that the accelerator.
Oh, yes.
Yes, because you would move really fast. You would just go really fast.
And the beautiful thing with having been a life coach and having those skills as well is like I can help people overcome their writer's block. All the fears that come up, who am I to write this book? And it comes up a lot, even with people who have committed. It's like, is it going to be good enough? Like all these fears that are so normal. And the other day somebody was saying to me, we were writing this book, she said, Krystal, is it normal to think that your entire chapter is just crap? And I was like, yeah, that's normal. and then she read it again 2 weeks later and she had some amazing feedback on it. And she said, oh, wow, that's actually really good. So it's incredible how the mind takes us on a roller coaster of emotions and how the book really helps us. Like this lady in particular said, writing this chapter has been the best person development I've done by far. It's been an accelerator, as you were just saying.
And the brain wants to keep us, being the nerdy person I am, the brain wants to keep us safe. And putting these things out into the big world becomes a little scary for people. Ooh, oh my gosh, I don't want them to know about that about me. I don't want to share that on a big stage. Holy cow. But then when you see the reaction, because you are destined to create that impact, because there's someone out there waiting to hear that story. There's someone waiting to hear you speak that story that will change their lives forever. You don't know who it is. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it happens often. So by not doing it, you're depriving people of their destiny, which is you pointing them.
Yeah, it's so true, because that thought is just gone. You're living your story and you're living your life in a unique way, and there's only one of you. So the way you perceive a certain theme that's universal and how you're experiencing it is so unique. And your perspective and your learnings and your wisdom and the way you can communicate that is so unique that, as you said, you're depriving somebody. If you don't share that and they need to hear it exactly your way, then you're depriving that person of their awakening. So I think when we do have these whispers, they're not just imaginations of our ego to say, when we have this, you should write a book, you have something important to say, you're meant to be on a stage. I always say, trust it, believe that little whisper of a voice, because it is your soul calling you into who you are, into your greatness. And with the help that will shape that, because I say to my clients, I will not let you write something that will be over exposing you or making you feel vulnerable. So with that help, these fears can be put aside and be dissolved.
Yes, I call them angel whispers. It's sort of like they come like this, but the ground has to be fertile. Can we open up enough first for the ground to be fertile enough for those little seeds to be planted and take root turn into the tree, like all the energy of the acorn. Amazing. Turns into a big giant oak tree. And that's when internal guidance system, not GPS, IPS, or internal guidance system, when that's activated and you can allow it to give you the information, because we've all got it. We don't really need somebody outside of ourselves. We're asked people all the time, what do you think? What should we do? Blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. Ask yourself, your inner self, your inner guidance system. And it's true, 100%. You might not like what it says sometimes, because you might have to give something up that you may hold dear, but it's not serving you anymore. You might have to say goodbye to a person or a location or a group of people. But then the next part of it is so wonderful because you listened. Because if you don't listen, other things start to happen, right?
Yeah, the whispers become slaps across the face, right? And
Right, right.
yeah, don't
Yeah.
want to, and it brings you into drama and into
Uh-huh.
hardship. We just don't
Mm-hmm.
want that. So listen. Yeah, I 100% agree. And if you need
Mm-hmm.
to, I think journaling is actually a great way to
Yes.
listen, find answers. Actually, sitting
Mm-hmm.
down. Sometimes I say sit down with a timer, set it for 20 minutes, and write without stopping. That's what
Yes.
we tap into, our internal
Mm-hmm.
wisdom, because the mind can't get in the way, because we will just keep writing and we'll keep ignoring it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And we're not going to stop long enough for it to make a critical announcement. Oh, no, 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 no. We're going to just
Yeah.
keep on going. And when we get to the end, I like to like not even read it at the moment. I like to just close it and then walk away, and then come back a little bit later and open it up and read it. And sometimes I go, oh heck, I wrote the same thing over and over and over. What? I guess I better take a little look at that.
That's right. Mm.
Well, here we are. You're getting ready to move into a new location. Is it a total new home?
It is a total new home. It is just a
Mm-hmm.
couple of suburbs away, but yeah, it was exactly that, that whisper to it's
Mm-hmm.
time,
Yes.
taking action. Yes.
Yes, and I so appreciate you coming here in the midst. Moving can be like, whoa, in the midst of doing that and sharing such wonderful, wonderful. And I know everyone who's listened to this will say, I didn't realize writing was so ethereal, so spiritual, so deep. I just thought that I just started a book and I just put words on the page, but it's way more than that. It's a journey.
Yes.
You're actually making a baby. You're making a baby, and it's your baby.
Yeah, and it is an exciting journey. It's going through, and it goes through all the ups and downs. And if you want to accelerate your
Mm-hmm.
business and your life, write a
Mm-hmm.
book.
Yes, yes. So I am going to say, write a book. If you've got one, some whispers running about, please, please contact Catherine, please, because you will be so pleased that you did it, and it'll be so much fun. Thank you so much. Um, any very last thing to say?
Just believe in yourself. There's nobody who can give you permission but you, so don't wait for external permission. It will potentially never come. Listen to yourself.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I can't wait for people to listen to this podcast. This has been Good Body,
Thank
Good
you.
Brain. Thank you so much.